So welcome, my name is Jason Grillo with AirMiners. We have our organizing committee for the AirMiners Launchpad. Today's a Q&A on what Launchpad is and how it works. We also have esteemed alumni of our Launchpad program, Darylyn Roberts and Maurice Bryson. We're gonna talk a little bit about Launchpad at the start, what it's meant for us as an organizing team, kind of where it's going a little bit, and with some alumni testimonial sprinkled in there as well. And then, but the majority of the conversation today is going to be hearing your questions, what you want to learn most about Launchpad and how we can help you along in terms of understanding what the program is all about and how to apply. So I'm going to leave it up to first go to Tito and Tchaikovsky and Adina Mangabat on our Launchpad team, and then Darylyn and Maurice Bryson, and then we'll go from there. So Tito, Adina, take it away.
Hey everybody, hey Adina.
Hello.
So I wanted to introduce Adina. Adina was the entrepreneur in residence at the last batch of the Accelerator. So she got tons of experience working with the teams and yeah, maybe we could even just start with a little bit of an overview of the program and then kind of dive into what the experience was like. For everybody that's new here, which I think is a lot of people. So AirMiners exists to figure out how do we accelerate the planet to getting to gigaton scale carbon dioxide removal. A lot of people say that it's impossible, and the truth is it is. A lot of people also say that gigaton scale carbon removal is needed, and that is also true. So we are here assembled because we need to do something that's both impossible and necessary, and we need to be able to hold both of those things kind of in our minds at the same time. The Accelerator program that we created was a way to bring together promising teams that have an idea or a prototype that are working on how to get to gigaton scale carbon dioxide removal, and to figure out what are the gaps in their experience, where are the gaps in their connections, in their resources, and how can we help solve for that. So as you're looking at applying to the program, that's kind of how we're going to be looking through your application. Is, are we going to be able to help you? Because if we're not, let's get out of the way. Like, that's the point, is to accelerate teams' ability to get to gigaton scale carbon removal. And so if we can do that, great. And if there's somebody else that can help you better, we're gonna send you there. But yeah, I'd be curious to hear from Dina, just in terms of kind of your perspective on this, is coming in as an entrepreneur in residence, and what that was like.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that the thing that I really love about Launchpad is that a lot of times I think that there are teams that have really great ideas and they've done a lot of thinking on the technical side of the house, but just because you have a great technology doesn't necessarily mean that it solves the customer need the way that the customer has it. And so I think a lot of what Launchpad really offers is that lens into making sure, are you solving exactly the right problem? And are you saying it in a way that resonates for the customers? And really looking at how do you go about that? I think another really valuable part is looking at the techno-economic assessment. Because just because you can remove carbon from the air doesn't necessarily mean that it's economical to do so. And so it's really looking at what are the inputs, where are the scaling limitations, all of those kinds of pieces. So I think that those are some of the big things. And then there's obviously all of the things that come after that. Like, I mean, I've had conversations with teams around, okay, like, how do I find a co-founder? How do you even go about doing co-founder dating in an effective way? Or how do I pitch my first angel investor or my first VC? How do I know what to tell them? How do I structure my first deal? I'm trying to do a pilot. Do I ask for money from my pilot, or do I do it for free? Like, I want them to say yes. There's a lot of questions like that, and we're here to help guide you through that to the very best of our ability. And we've got a really good team that's seen a lot of this stuff, and we can do some pattern matching on that. So I think that's really our jobs here.
Cool. Cool. And as evidence of that, you know, Darylyn, Maurice, why don't you just introduce yourselves and can talk a little about what's meant to you and what your retrospective is on your Launchpad experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, hello everyone. My name is Darylyn Roberts. We were part of Launchpad Batch 2, and we were really we're working on a direct air captured distributed solution at our company, Carbon Blade. To talk about kind of what the Launchpad experience sort of did for us and how it really did change our trajectory that we were focused on. We were really kind of focused mostly, and I'll echo exactly what Adina mentioned, we were mostly focusing on the technical aspects, how do we get a pilot? How do we, go through the different phases of development? What Launchpad really gave us was the ability and the sort of the template and the construct of how to think about customer discovery, which is something that no one ever wants to do, right? And they kept pushing us. And I tell everyone this when they ask me about the program, is that they were like, no, that's not good enough. We'd be like, okay, we talked to 2 customers. We felt good. Every week we would always feel good. Like, we talked to 2 customers. They would like, no, you need to talk to 10 people. You need to be pushing so hard, right? And they were understanding too. I don't want to give the sense that it was just a complete challenge, but they kept sort of, they knew that was really where the core aspect of you being able to come out of the technology development process with actually a market there, as opposed to you trying to pull the market, that you actually you have an addressable market. They forced us to think about not just our TAM, but also like, what's our beachhead market? Where do we need to focus first, right? What's low hanging fruit? I think that also kind of thinking about, for us, we were also applying to the X Prize competition. And so when we went in and then sort of put together a milestone application, we were shocked at how much that we had developed through the AirMiners program were we able to like utilize. And so for us, it felt like it wasn't just another program, it was actually a process that allowed us to have tangible sort of outcomes at the end that were used. And then the last part I'll just say, which is something that I don't think we thought was going to be a part of it, but it was just an inherent part that hasn't been mentioned, was really the community. I think that the AirMiners community in general, the broader community, is wonderful and fantastic, but then you kind of get this ability to be part of this smaller community where you're creating bonds and you're sharing information that is unique to, I think, this program, because it's so small and it's so it allows for such cross-pollination of ideas, and and so I can't speak more highly about the program, and such a good use of time, for sure.
I'll just quickly jump in. I would say all of the above for everything Darylyn said. Such a great use of time. I used to look forward to it. So it was a Tuesday night. So we're based in Ireland. So my company is called Silicate Carbon, and we do enhanced rock weathering. So it'd be like from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock at night, which you think is like time for a drink or bed or something. But I look forward to AirMiners. It's good fun. I think the biggest thing for us was kind of the community. So we're based in Ireland, not kind of historically a CDR hub, but now through AirMiners are familiar with loads of different teams around the world who are working in the space, and have learned a lot. I think a key thing also from AirMiners that we really loved was the access to people from Stripe or from Shopify, kind of key players in the space that you want to hear what makes them tick, so that you can change how you make your pitches. So I think that was a big point for us. But yeah, the community too was great. So happy to be here.
Cool. So just to step back and talk about like what the maybe what the program is, how it works. I'm going to share the link to the application in the Zoom chat here, launchpad.airminers.org/apply for those of you watching in the recording. But the deadline is March 31st for batch 4. Applications are free, and we aim to have a batch run through about a month and a half long program starting in mid-April of 2022, and running through each module. In the past, we've had modules on a week on customer discovery, on value proposition development, on economic assessment. The way that has worked is that we've had batches of anywhere between 10 and 12. Actually, we had to at 15 start in the last one of teams in a hour-and-a-half long meeting with group work to share among each other, and then have a guest speaker on that topic of the week, and then cycle through what has been a 6-week program, and then go from there. So that's how the program is structured in a basic sense. And like I said, applications are due in about a week and a half now. Tito and Adina, anything you want to add about the program nuts and bolts, or maybe we can go into Q&A after that? All good? Okay, cool. So now's your time. It's 15 minutes past the hour. We're going to stop in about 45 minutes, but happy to hear any questions you have about the program, about how it works, what it is, what the experiences have been, and what your most important questions you as an audience. So now it's time to maybe go from there. Tito.
Just to tail off of that, don't be afraid to give super duper specific questions. We tell this to the teams in the program too, but you don't have to be hypothetically, you can say our company accidentally got incorporated in, wherever, and we want to figure that out. Getting really specific is totally fine. It doesn't have to be this useful to the rest of the group. Asking the question that you actually care about is great.
Thanks. So Abhishek has a question in the chat directly to me. What is the criteria for selection to the Launchpad program? What do you want to see in an applicant? So go ahead, Tito.
You want to talk about that, Jason?
Sure. I mean, so a variety of things we look for, but the basic thought is that we look for a trajectory. It doesn't, usually the teams we see are 1 or 2 or 3 people, fairly early stage in CDR. We don't get, for the record, we don't care what method of CDR you're pursuing. It could be direct air capture. It could be, as Maurice mentioned, soil carbon or enhanced rock weathering. It could be algal carbon sequestration in an ocean environment. It could be, it could be how to use mines better. It could be a supportive idea that you have about how to verify soils carbon content. It could be a carbon accounting. It could be a software solution to kind of fill in the cracks of the whole value chain, not just drawing down carbon, just to be very clear. So any method of carbon removal is, as it were, on the table. So there's that. Again, the idea is a trajectory rather than position. That you have an idea that you're working on, and that's what you want to do. You don't have to have a prototype. Doesn't hurt, but not necessary that you have a prototype. But there has to be a more coherent idea that you are working on to support the carbon removal ecosystem, either by drawing the carbon down from the atmosphere or by supporting others to do so. Tito, do you want to pick up on that, or Adina? Nope. Okay, great. So that's that in a nutshell. Bethany, please.
Hi. Yeah, I've been chatting with Tito, and so he's already been answering my questions, which I appreciate. I have another one that's different than our discussion. So I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about your relationship with both CDL and XPRIZE. I mean, I know the milestone is already finished. Is that a continuing relationship? And if you could talk, just a bit more about those relationships.
Yeah, I can take that one. And if you have a more specific, a question or concern within that, happy to hear that. But just, more broadly, again, we're taking on something that is simultaneously impossible and necessary. And so going together is a key part of that. When we were first thinking about putting together this program as kind of this emergent behavior out of the AirMiners community, we saw people starting companies and getting help and needing help. We were able to connect to XPRIZE because they were just starting up their new $100 million prize with Elon Musk. We had known XPRIZE, we'd like worked with XPRIZE on their previous carbon prize. So kind of the idea there was, yeah, what can we do to help build better companies that turn into better XPRIZE applicants? Specifically, this comes up is that we don't actually do anything in terms of like getting you your application into XPRIZE. We're not like, here's how to fill out the forms or anything like that. Or kind of our core principle there that we worked out with XPRIZE was let's help build better teams and build better solutions to carbon removal. And just like that's what's going to win the XPRIZE anyway. So like let's just do that. And then so that's where XPRIZE is. You know, the milestone prize applications are in now. So there's kind of the next phase in terms of that you can apply for is kind of more of the later stages of the competition. But yeah, we had plenty of teams in the programs that were yeah, I think we had one of our sessions like the day of the applications were due. So people were like, hey, I'm tired now. With CDL, so the thing is, we want to be able to get teams to their next inflection point, right? We want to get teams to the stage where they're ready to connect to the rest of the startup ecosystem. So that's where we're able to connect to Creative Destruction Lab and Paul Kuban, one of the directors of Creative Destruction Lab, the West division of it, and also one of the founders of Creative Destruction Lab Climate, along with Rodney Payne, who is another AirMiners advisor. We worked with them to say, how do we build a program that gets teams to the point where they're going to be ready to apply and join a program like Creative Destruction Lab to take them to their next stage. Again, going back to that kind of where is the gap that we can help with, and it's really it starts around the stage where you have an idea, a prototype, up to getting you to the next program, getting you investment from venture capitalists or grants. That's really like our core strength, and that's where partnering with Creative Destruction Lab on developing a program that kind of gets teams ready to connect there is key. And so we've had, I believe, 2 teams from the program go on to Creative Destruction Lab, including Ruby Labs. And I guess we'll see with the milestone prizes, but Takachar was a batch 1 team, received a student award from XPRIZE for, I believe it's $250,000. And so, yeah, that's happy to get into more specifics, but that's kind of the relationship there is with XPRIZE, we help build better teams, and with CDL, it's getting teams pointed in the right direction so that they're a fit for Creative Destruction Lab or whatever else, if there's another program that's a better fit for them. We're happy to make those connections there. Just that kind of from the inception, we were really, benefited by all the work of Paul Kuban, who really, did a lot of the architecture work on, what is this program? How does it work? He's been doing this stuff for years as the a lead in CDL, but also as a head of entrepreneurship at the University of British Columbia. So yeah, that's a overview of kind of where we're connected to XPRIZE and CDL, and the value of that is that we want to do this specific thing to get you going and then get you connected to where you need to be going after that. Where'd Bethany go? What's up, Bethany? How was that? How was that answer?
No, that was a very good answer, and I think it answered it. Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Was there like a more specific question that were you like, hey, we really want to apply to? I mean, the XPRIZE is kind of like they kind of finished that phase, so it's sort of less relevant now.
Yeah, no, my question was more geared to thinking about CDL, because so the milestone is over, and just we've been thinking we've been in touch with CDL in the past. We weren't quite ready, and I was just wondering what that connection was, and so you answered that, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yep. Yeah. What else? Do you have any other questions, or anybody else have questions?
Looks like Paul Needham has a question.
Yeah, if I can find my mic. Hi there. I work with Bethany at with Carbon Minerals. Thank you so much for this session. Just back to logistics for a moment. Yeah, so it's 6 weeks, meeting once a week. How long are those meetings? And I presume there's lots of homework involved as well, as Daryl Lynn talked about. Good homework, like getting out there and talking to prospective customers. Can you tell us a bit more about the time commitment based on what you've seen?
I'm wondering if Maurice can answer that as a participant in the most recent batch.
Yeah, that'd be great to hear. Maurice?
Time commitment. It was nothing too crazy. It's more just kind of finding companies that you want to interview. So the companies that actually would be relevant to you. And that was actually a challenge in itself. So I think what the guys did a great job of was kind of guiding you with where to look to find the answers you needed to get your business to the next stage. But in terms of logistics, in terms of pure hours, I don't know, a couple hours a week, I would say maybe. And some of that is kind of arranging calls and stuff with companies and then having those actual meetings. So nothing too onerous, but it's time well spent. I would say that, you know, if you do the work with their guidance in mind, it'll pay off massively. That's what I would say.
Darylyn, you want to? Yeah, please.
I'll just add, you know, ironically, it's work that you should be doing, but you probably, because you're so focused on your technical kind of milestones, you'll push it out, right? So it's really kind of in that regard, it's time that you're already spending, right, and should be spending. So I don't, it's not onerous at all. I agree completely with what was said earlier. I think that fundamentally, you know, if you maximize the value of the program, you could spend a good 3-4 hours, maybe even 5 hours of customer discovery time, right? And if you don't have the time, you know, a number of individuals in our cohort had full-time jobs, so they weren't able to devote the same amount of time. And so, you know, I think it's also helpful that in your case you have, you know, co-founders already, because then you can like sort of distribute the burden of the sort of time commitment. That worked for us. We had 3 co-founders that were participating, and that really helped us on days where you know, other individuals could go out and focus on the customer discovery more than others could in certain weeks.
Great, thank you.
Paul, can you unpack your question a little bit? I'm just seeing, unless there's somebody else has like a burning question, but like, yeah, can you get more specific? Like what, how did that sound to you? Like, was there something you had, so you have multiple co-founders. Yeah, like what,
well, first of all,
where that question was
the way you do that. I love the way you do that. You ask us to like unpack the question. That's really helpful. So yeah, we're pulling together our team. We've got a team of co-founders. We're adding some others to the team as well. We've got a bit of money into the company already. And some of our team have built companies before. They know all about customer discovery. They've built multiple ventures. Others not so much. So trying to get a sense of the different sort of layers of value in the program. And wondering if, you know, I've seen other accelerator programs or incubator programs that involve a lot of mentorship and pairing with sort of industry experts. I guess I was wondering if that was part of the way the program's designed as well.
I could jump in there. I think, and Maurice mentioned it. It's a short program, obviously, so it's challenging to do kind of that, like, I imagine a sort of an extended mentorship, but having the individuals, whether they're from XPRIZE, any of the other, or from Stripe, come in and talk, that's helpful. But it's also really helpful to hear from that first tranche of CDR companies that are out there that are being successful. Because you're thinking to yourself, like, I'll think for me, the one that really made the difference was Carbon Cure came in and spoke, and they talked about having gone through these different components and how customer discovery was critical for them, and how, you know, they had to sort of deal with, and then Charm came in and spoke, and she talked about how, you know, there were some growing pains, right? And they're very frank around what things that impacted them. And I think that that's rare that you get to hear a very sort of just authentic view of what are some of the things that you're going to face going forward. So Paul, I think that in itself is something that's really valuable that I don't think we kind of really touched on deeply, but I think will be of deep use and would sort of function as mentoring, if you will, from that standpoint. And then honestly, you can reach out to them. I reached out to the CEO, Robert, from Carbon Cure, and we began working on another project. So I mean, connecting to all of that community is something that is it's just invaluable, honestly.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to pick up on that, Darlene, is that we select speakers who are, we aim for having speakers who themselves have been entrepreneurs in the past. So they've been in your shoes, not so long ago, and can speak to the kinds of issues that you're contending with on a day-to-day basis. So that's by design, that we bring in people who can say, again, Robert from Carbon Cure, for instance, back when we did this kind of customer discovery, and I can understand that it's really difficult, but this is what was the benefit to doing this kind of work. And that's how we help build their company to what it is today, how they help build the company to what it is today. So that's kind of why we do what we do the way we do it.
Thank
to
you.
close the loop on the logistic piece of it, so we have the sessions are 90 minutes. We have the speaker part is kind of at the end, and you have this kind of more group work session with a team of 3 or 4 other startup companies. Just to close the loop on that, so the guest speaker that people are talking about is we do them like off the record. It's not recorded, and so people are encouraged to just be like, real. Because again, like if you have sold a carbon removal credit to a company, you are one of 20 people on the planet that's ever done that. And we need to get to $1 trillion market for gigaton scale carbon removal. So the idea is like, whatever those 20 people are willing to share, let's translate that back to people to cut years off of that process. Because that's the whole point, is that we're talking about this on AirMiners Slack, but like the compounded rate of growth that we need in carbon removal, it looks like it's a lot faster than other industries have ever grown. And so we have to take whatever shortcuts we can. And I think that's something that people that are working on carbon removal, they get that. People that come in, Rob from Charm, Kelly from Charm, Rob from Carbon Cure, who are some of that, Stacy from Shopify. We get a lot of different people from carbon removal who are like at the forefront of this, and just to ask them, like, where is this today? You can share all kind of the stories about how it worked, but like, what do you think about? There's probably some other speakers. Of course, there's some other speakers. We've done 3 batches, and we've had generally new speakers each time. So probably on the order of like 15 different speakers that we've worked with. But all founders or people that are like super leaders in early stage carbon removal innovations.
Adina, you're gonna say something, or?
Yeah, I was just thinking about, folks that have spoke during this last batch. I mean, there's Heirloom, and they shared a lot about kind of what their whole process was like, especially in discovering early value proposition. There was Grant, who is like the techno-economic assessment wizard. So, I mean, it's a very rich group of resources. And one of the benefits of AirMiners is that it's a smaller community. We seem to know everybody. So if there's somebody specific that you want to get connected to, we can work with you to do that.
And that's just a quick plug too for these speakers. These are all people that are part of AirMiners, right? They're all on AirMiners Slack. And so Jason's put it this way, that the program is kind of this concentrated version of the broader AirMiners Slack. But like, you want to ping people on AirMiners Slack, like, giddy up, like those, people are there, right? Again, that was part of the inception of the program. Was we saw Quincy Childs had posted like this weird sketch on the general channel of Slack, And then that led to Alex Capellian, who's a partner at IndieBio, pinging him, being like, let's talk about this weird sketch. That turned into a seed round. That turned into the company known as Carbix. Yeah, so that's all this stuff is accessible and in this community, and through the program, what we want to do is to really just distill that down and say, okay, let's get the exact right people for exactly where you are. Oh, Quincy Sammy. Why did I say Quincy Tom? Yeah.
Looks like Kareem has a question, and Abhishek actually has another question as well, but please, Kareem.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. So the question is, understood about all the value about the program, of course, but what about geographies? So I think it's primarily a North American program, but what about participation to, for example, Europe? And are there any pluses or minuses for that?
Maurice.
I'll hit it. Yeah, there's loads of Europeans in this, I think you only learn about these people when you actually join the program, so AirMiners is amazing for, as Tito was saying, accessing kind of everyone, the people, the dream team of CDR, the people who exist, who are very prominent. But also through Launchpad, you get to meet other teams. So I was in the last cohort, I just finished a few weeks ago. It was 6 weeks and it was great. And we had people from all over the world. So we had 2 guys in Africa. I want to say Kenya, but I'm probably wrong saying that. We had, where are they from, guys? Do you remember? Tito, would you remember?
Nairobi. And they had 2 different companies, and they happened to be, I don't know if they were roommates, but they were always doing the whole like, hey, we're in the same room.
Same city. Yeah.
They're in the same Zoom chat, the same Zoom.
And we had some folk from the US as well, some from Portugal. So yeah, look, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, just the time where it's at. So for us in Europe, it was in the evening time. That was the only thing. But yeah, you get to meet other folk who are maybe a lot earlier. So it wouldn't be kind of like in the media, for example, or kind of prominent in terms of VC funding and stuff. So you'll meet folk who are at your stage, perhaps, depending where you are, who are also very interested in CDR. So it's kind of a chance to share ideas. And just the kind of thing that was recurring in my head there while people were speaking was, it's very much a safe space is kind of how I think it sounds kind of a bit lame me saying that, but it's like a place where you can ask the questions that you need help with, because they're very specific questions. In CDR, it's niche, it's niche as hell, so it's the right place to be asking those questions. Hope that answers your question.
And actually, just to build on that, we are open to potentially advancing the time of the meetings to earlier in the morning Pacific time, so that we can accommodate people in different time zones for the group meetings. Jordan.
Yeah, Adina, you've mentioned economics a couple times. Obviously, a really important part of running a business. How far along the techno-economic analysis do you think you need to be to benefit most from the programming?
I think that we've seen people all along the chain. I mean, we've had people that I would say have done, a fairly first deep cut at it, but then get refinement from Grant, because the resourcing that he's put together is pretty insane. And then we also have people that are at the very, very beginning that have never done it at all. And that's extremely informative, because then you learn whether it's actually going to work. So if it doesn't work in Excel, it's never going to work in real life, right?
And just to be clear, what Grant is, his name is Grant Faber, formerly of the University of Michigan Global CO2 Initiative. So check them out for some really interesting resources on carbon removal.
Jordan, where are you at in your TEA journey?
Very, very early, but it's in CDR. I live just down the street from carbon engineering, and they're still figuring out their costs. So, I mean, it's a long process, and I recognize that.
That's right. Yeah, and Grant's tools are really good, because he's right there with very early stage teams, understanding what is it you need to do, why do you need to do it, right? One, so your company's, you're on the right track. If it works in Excel, it might work in the real world. Also, for conversation with investors, any investor who's coming in is going to say like, where is this? And wherever you're at, whether it's a draft or if it's more formal than that or something like that, you're going to be able to have that conversation in an open way. It's like, yeah, here's where we're at on this. But yeah, seen it to be very helpful for teams. Also had one team that they did their techno-economic assessment. They said, you know what, this is going to emit carbon overall. They couldn't find a way to change the process, which is a thing that Grant is really good about. He's like, it's fine if it's emitting carbon. Let's figure out if you can change pieces of your process to then make it carbon negative. But the team wasn't able to, and so they said, let's scrap it. And they're working on a new startup in carbon removal after that. So it's a really valuable step to be able to step into it. Like Marie said, have a safe environment to say, look, we want to get you to pulling gigatons of carbon from the air, no matter what. So that's the kind of power of doing that work early and wherever you are on it. For what it's worth, I would even offer like the more teams can do before Launchpad, the better. I forget if we've made we've talked about making the video that Grant did, that's TEA for entrepreneurs. He did that for Launchpad. We did record it. It was like one of those record sessions, and we've talked about like sharing that publicly, just because like we'd love it if the teams showed up and had more of their techno-economic stuff figured out. It's a sign of like that you've thought through kind of the whole chain of what your process is in terms of land use, in terms of labor, in terms of environmental impacts, all that sort of stuff. Because the thing is, TEA has sometimes resulted in understanding a better value proposition for your company. We had a company, Carbon for Good, that came in and said, you know what, like in terms of TEA, our labor component is like really high, and that's the point. Is we want to be able to link like lots of labor to carbon removal. And so it's if you have that in the TEA, you can say, you know what, that's actually a part of the value proposition of our company that I don't think was as, Adina, you worked a lot on that, but I don't think that was as clear going in. I'm like, yeah, own that. Yeah.
Another question from Abhishek here. If I'm reading it correctly, if you only have an idea but they have a proper plan to execute this for a gigaton level, how can we help? Abhishek, let me know if that's if I'm misinterpreting your question. But the question is if it's only an idea, how is that? How can they do that? Well, I mean, it helps to have a very well thought out idea. And to be willing to test it, even if you don't have a working model, even if you don't have it out of a lab, that's okay. We look for potentially world-changing ideas, that you have a pathway to get it to a gigaton scale, that you have an idea that it could be eventually. That's what you might be aiming for. Not a threshold, but that you have ideas about how your idea could be applied very broadly. Love to see that. Go ahead, Tito.
Jason originally introduced this idea that we're looking at momentum and trajectory, and that's where I think with if you're coming with just an idea, if you're coming with an idea, we're going to be really curious about like what your trajectory is, right? Because if you had this idea 6 months ago, or longer, well, what's happening with that idea? What's your next stage for that idea? What's your next milestone? What's blocking you from getting there? That sort of stuff. So sometimes with teams that have prototypes, there's a bit more of that momentum. It kind of flows easier to say, okay, so now we're going to improve the prototype and da da da. But when you're at the idea stage, we see a lot of teams that kind of get stuck there. It's not a matter of like, execution versus ideas or something. There's something else there that with if you have an idea, we want to hear about how you're connecting to other people, how you're getting feedback on that idea, how you're what sucks about your idea, like what was wrong about your idea, like all that sort of stuff is really how we're wanting to find your momentum and if we can like help help you kind of push towards more momentum there. Yeah, and just like this kind of is a bit tangential, but in the sense that once you apply to the program, we review all the applications, then we interview some of the teams. And so in general, I'd say 90% of our interviews come down to 3 questions. I've talked about this on my newsletter, but the questions are like, what are your goals for the next 3 months? What's your plan for getting to those goals? And what's stopping you from getting there like right this second? And I think those questions are especially if you're at that idea phase, like getting really clear on that, because the next few months are really going to be crucial for that idea becoming more real. And then just to ground it, like we had a team that came in with an idea, C-bound from the UK, and they had an idea. They had a team. They had met a couple weeks before the program started. They are working on removing carbon from shipping emissions. And now they went on to Y Combinator, and they're graduating in 7 days. So very much like if you have an idea, like game on. Just that we're going to be looking to push you on that trajectory.
And just to be clear, the refinement of that idea doesn't just stop because AirMiners Launchpad is over. Darylyn, you've been out of the program a couple months, and Maurice, it's been only a couple weeks, but still, maybe you can speak to how the further support refinement has been for you.
Sure, I think that the program sort of, I'd say, plants the seeds around all of the different components that are critical. So TA analysis, the funny thing is that sort of started us on the path to then be able to incorporate that and start developing that aspect of our technology. I would say also just our pitch deck. I just had a session actually with Jason and Adina around like, can you give us some feedback? And that's hugely valuable. I mean, to be able to get asked sort of that type of, and authentic and real feedback around where you think, and it's, your pitch deck is always like your baby, and they're sort of like, no, this is what you need to be thinking about. This is what you need to be thinking about, and being able to incorporate that. And then I'll say, lastly, like we were out of the program and we were able to meet with the organizers of Stripe. And that was hugely beneficial for us to think through, are we ready to apply to the different phases of Stripe, and will we have, the best application? So, and then obviously the broader AirMiners Slack channel and that community is incredibly valuable too. So I would say it's on so many different dimensions, and it's almost like once you're part of, I call it a family, right? I mean, it's sort of is functioning in that way where everyone is really trying to support everyone and provide kind of input to everyone. And it's not sort of like we're competing. It's like, as Tito always says, we've got to get as many, goals on shots on goal, if you will, to be able to achieve our long-term goals of climate mitigation. And so I think that's really sort of the core of the aspect of the program that's been beneficial to me post the 6 weeks, because 6 weeks is really fast. It goes by really quick. You blink and you're like, oh my gosh, we're graduating from the program. But it's really that sort of continual relationship and support network.
Yes, I mean, I have very little to add on that. But yeah, I think it was just the starting point, and it sets you up for everything that comes afterwards. But Adina's been helping me with my pitch deck. But we're actually not raising any money because we sold some carbon credits, so we're good to go for a while. But I think it's getting into the family a little bit and then kind of building from there. And I don't know, you take the skills you learned on 6 weeks, like customer discovery, and then you buy some books and you keep learning more customer discovery, and then you keep going with it. So I think it's a great program if you haven't got that picture already.
You close your sale?
Yeah.
Freaking cool. Congratulations. That's awesome. What? How are you celebrating that? Like, let's have a party.
It's not public yet, so I can't say anything.
Shit.
But yeah,
Okay.
we'll be partying at some stage, yeah.
Okay, bye.
Oh, okay. For those of the recording, yeah, we'll just skip. We'll just skip that. Raheem.
Everyone, so I have a question about suitability of the program to someone who is at the ideas stage. So someone like me, still working on multiple ideas in parallel, like doing high level validation on each of them to see, which ones are suitable to, do a deep dive into and focus on. It seems like the program is great. If there is, room for people like me who want to find some sort of a playbook for high level validation to identify, which ideas to focus on, which idea to focus on. So yeah, just the question is this program suitable to someone like me who's in that ideas phase and who wants support on, how do I validate ideas high level, identify which ones are good ones, bad ones, and then be able to then go on and focus on one or two and drive it to, like at least the end of customer discovery.
I'll take this one. This is, getting to gigaton scale carbon dioxide removal means we need like on the order of like 10,000 people like you, right? And like we need them to figure out, to assess an idea, to pick one, and then to make progress on it. That said, the specific accelerator program that we have probably is best when you've picked one idea to focus on. I think that's when you can kind of go faster on that. I'm curious if Jason or Dina have other thoughts on that, but I think that getting into AirMiners Slack, are you on Slack already?
Yeah.
I think that like the business model lab channel could be helpful for kind of assessing different ideas and pushing that forward. I would also offer, like, if you're up for just like flipping a coin and picking one of your ideas and focusing on that for 6 weeks. Again, just to reflect back, like I've seen a lot of people get stuck at the like stage where they have a bunch of different concepts and it can be hard to make progress on there. I have recommended teams and people to like strategically like flip a coin because I think there is something to committing that at least 6 weeks later you could say like that idea sucks. I mean that's like the worst case outcome, right? So yeah, if there is a way you can kind of hone in more, but that said, like hearing about what your process is and stuff like that could be interesting. Like if you have a clear, I'm going to do this thing over the next month and I need to talk to these 10 people about these 10 different ideas. Anyway, that's kind of my take. Is like, I think that the accelerator probably is more useful once you down select to an idea.
Gotcha. One thing that I'm realizing is a lot of the things that are covered in the accelerator, like the TA modeling, if you can, like, it would be great, at least for someone in my stage, to be able to know what to do, a little bit of in this early phase to sort of, score an idea essentially. So maybe I'll send a message to get some more context on that for advice. How
to score an idea? That's cool. I think business model lab channel would be good there. I think that's like a lot of people that are kind of at that stage. It's a really important problem. That's the thing. And like, gotta say, I don't have a solution for you that I'm, like, yes, this is a solution for that. But I think that the people that are on the business model lab channel will get you there.
Great, excellent. Thank you.
And if you're interested in that video from Grant, let me find that. What was it, Chris? We have it unlisted and we've been meaning to share it. So I can post that here.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, one thing to note, and Tito, you touched on this as well, is that like sometimes, again, finding the thing that you don't want to do, that's hugely important. I mean, we tend to not, we tend to think of like of an idea that you want to double and triple down on it, and how's that going to work? But at times, it's a matter of taking stock, stopping, and saying, this hasn't worked out so well because of what we learned by talking to customers, because of what we learned by a techno-economic assessment, because of what we learned by, just getting the value prop, that's really tough. I'm not sure that a customer would really buy that. So let's just step back, retrench, and then try a different pathway instead. It is a bit of a crucible, right? Where you really boil down and shine some light on that idea rather than spinning around. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. If you it's really helpful to just put a stake in the ground and saying, this is what the idea is. Let's test this. And as Tia said, look, even if you go through 6 weeks and look, that this didn't really work out, the idea didn't really seem to have viability. Great, that's better 6 weeks than 6 months. And so,
or 6 years.
Jack.
Gotcha. Fair enough. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit more about this idea of business models, in the sense of my feeling is, to get to gigaton scale, it's not really going to be about like profit per se, or I want to do this to make a bunch of money, but like this is going to be something that's going to be almost like utility, or something that's supported by, you know, governments. And it's not, so sort of my perspective on this is not like, I want to get rich by, you know, pulling down CDR, and I want to convince some venture capitalists to do that this is going to be a great business. It's more about like, what's a feasible way to fund this, you know, from at a global scale. So I wonder if that's like perspective is a part of AirMiners, or is it more like, oh, we're going to, you know, we want to convince venture capitalists this is going to be a great way to make money.
I'd love to hear from Maurice and Darylyn on that, but you know, before they jump in, like I think that goes back to that that idea of holding this idea that something's both impossible but necessary in your mind at the same time. I mean, that's, yeah, we have to be both comfortable with doing something that has a massive social benefit, and also comfortable figuring out how to get it to that stage. Yeah, but yeah, curious what Darylyn and Maurice think. Because yeah, I mean, this is just to reflect back, like this is what I think everybody who does this wakes up every day and kind of tries to figure out how do we make this thing work. Because it's not obvious. If anybody had it figured out, we wouldn't be here, right? Like that's the thing. So
I was just going to add that I think, yeah, you have to be motivated by, you know, the greater goal of addressing climate change. So I think that you won't find most people focused on just sort of, you know, kind of raising funds only. It really is about kind of in this community anyways. But I would also just add that I think it's important because, you know, hard science is much more difficult than sort of a software-based model where it's easy to flip. And I think being around others in kind of this community that see that and know it's going to take years for you to sort of bring this out into the marketplace and then fully commercialize it, and customer uptake, whether it's on the utilization side or whether it's on the sequestration side or whether it's, you know, in other ways, kind of ocean-based side. I think that is really important. So I think that you'll find that the community is like-minded, right? From that standpoint, I don't think you'll find it that it's uniquely different and that you're sort of focused on you know, on sort of the greater good, if you will, and everyone else is sort of focused on just raising funds and burning through capital.
Thanks. And I don't mean to, you know, critique trying to make money on it. It's just, I'm just sort of curious if that perspective is part of AirMiners and sort of how we think about that. Like, what is the real way we're going to pay for getting gigatons out of the air?
that is the huge question. And if you're not on AirMiners Slack already, if you go to airminers.org and click the apply button, there's 1,300 people around the world that are trying to answer that question just the same as you are. And so give yourself the benefit of surrounding yourself with those other people.
We have less than 5 minutes to go. So any other thoughts or questions people have? Just would be great to hear. Just real quick, how many teams we've chosen for this batch from Pickle? Usually between 10 and 15 teams we've had in the past. And Damon wanted to know if we have a guide as to target price of a ton of CO2, what it is. Well, that is something that that the market will bear out. I mean, there's different prices for different methods of carbon removal. So we don't have a particular threshold or cutoff, if that's what your question is. Okay. Parting thoughts.
I would just say apply. I think that you could always think of, and we went through this phase too. We were like, well, is this the right time, in our development? And then when we applied, we were like, oh, this is where we needed to be, right? So I think that's the thing. I think just apply. If you're here and you have a concept and an idea, I think applying and kind of going through the process and seeing whether, whether whether it's a good fit will be hugely valuable.
Parting thought is it's oh, go ahead, Dina.
I was just saying, as one of the team members that will, be part of your journey, if you're accepted, I mean, we want to have you win, and we're willing to do whatever it takes to have you win, and connecting you with whatever resources you need and mentoring afterward or connecting with mentors. That's why we're here. So if that's what you want in terms of a team, that's what you'll get.
Well put. So, all right, great. Well, we are exactly at the top of the hour. So I want to say once more, thank you for your time. I shared a couple times the application link. So feel free to get that in by March 31st. And by the way, March 31st is the deadline. So looking forward to seeing what you have to say. If you have any questions on that, launchpad@airminers.org is the general Launchpad mailbox where you can ask questions about the program. And until then, best of luck, and we will hopefully see you soon. Cheers, everyone. Have a good one.